Hi everyone, it's Camille. I posted a recent video about filmmaking and how it relates to the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively case, and you all have been so amazing, leaving such great comments and really engaging with the video. And I wanted to hop back on here and talk a bit more about my filmmaking experience and basically what this case has taught me, lessons I've gleaned from it, because that I find, like I said, I find the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively case really fascinating. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Camille Hugh. I am a writer and a filmmaker. I make grounded romantic comedies about Black women getting their happily ever afters that are universal and can be enjoyed by everyone. There are a few things that I think that Justin and Blake should have maybe done differently, and it would have maybe turned this whole thing around. We wouldn't be where we are today. And I want to talk to you about them. So the first thing is being just way too chummy with your cast and crew. And I get why you want to foster like a good working environment. And so you want everyone to get along and to be friends. And you think the way to do that is to actually be friends. But I think it's a recipe for disaster. You have to really maintain boundaries, and you don't want people to get overly familiar with you. You don't want people to think that they are on the same footing as you. Like, there is a hierarchy in filmmaking. There has to be a person who's making the final call, and there has to be a person who is doing, like, executing the vision, the tasks that are involved with making a film. So you can't try to be too nice and accommodating and, give everyone what they want and take everyone's feedback, because everyone has an opinion about something and they think it should be done this way, that way, the other way. And if you're incorporating all those takes, it is no longer your film. It's just like this amalgamation of all these other different people's and ideas, and you kind of can lose what it is that you set out to create to begin with. And making a film, like, there is so much collaboration, because you're given a script as an actor, and then you kind of interpret it whatever way you interpret it, and you make these decisions about what the character's going to do in this situation and how they're going to deliver that line and how they're feeling. And so it is an amalgamation, right? Of, like, people come together and, like, they're all putting their stamp on it. But ultimately, the director is directing the ship and saying, okay, that's an interesting take on the subject matter, or like the script, or whatever, your lines or whatever. Good instinct, but I want you to go in this direction. I'm going to try something different, And so they determine whether they like what it is that you're bringing or not, and then say, okay, we're going to go this way, not that way. So when you are too close to people and they feel like they have too much access to you, or that they're your friends, or they're on the equal footing as you are, and that they should get their way, that's when problems arise. And as we can see, then you get people thinking that they are the boss and that they should get the final say. Like, their edit should be used. Like, what are you even doing making an edit for a film that you are just an actor in? It's just mind-boggling to me. But I think Justin brought a little of it on himself by not setting clear boundaries probably upfront. Because when we look at the emails and the text messages that they were sending each other, where she's inviting him over to her penthouse to, I don't know, run lines rehearse, whatever, or on her jet, it makes things, it's like introduces a gray area that you don't want to be in. You don't want these people to think that you're their friend. that's it. It sounds kind of horrible, but it's not that you're not friendly, right? But it's just that you're not overly familiar. And intimacy is, it's not like, there's a difference between like intimacy with characters and then like intimacy between the actors or the crew or whatever. Like it's a difference, right? And you need to maintain that difference and not think, oh, I need to get close and intimate with the actor for that to translate on the screen between the characters. Like, no, that is the actor's job, is to give a performance that's convincing, that if this script calls for it, that there is chemistry there and that they like each other and that they love each other, whatever the case may be. But that doesn't need to translate off screen. When Justin, who we can see in his text messages with Blake, is trying to assuage her ego and, you know, massage her ego and say like, you were amazing and this, that, the other, and they're just heaping praise. I mean, Blake is notorious for this. She just will be so effusive in her praise of her friends. With Taylor Swift, we saw that to be the case. And yes, with Justin Baldoni, it was just like, you're wonderful on set and you're terrific and I admire you and blah, 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 blah. And sure, a lot of directors, they try to like sweeten up their actors or your crew. You know, you want them to give their best work for you, and people are more likely to do that when they like you, even though they're being paid to do their job. You know, some people will be half-assed in doing their job when they don't like their boss. This is human nature. So you want them to like you, and you want everyone to get along and to be friends. And so you're like hugging people. That was maybe the first mistake, right? Because like you hug your family and your friends, but again, these people are not your family nor your friends. And if you, let's say you don't have a situation where someone's just uncomfortable with that, but let's say you start off, you set the tone with like the hugging and everything, and then for whatever reason you remove access, then people feel like they're being punished or something. And or you just hug one person and then you're not hugging everyone else. It's just best to keep it above board across the board. You do need to respect the people that you're working for, though. And Blake, according to her text with Matt Damon, I think, or maybe it was Ben Affleck, or her email, she was saying that she told Justin up front on day one that she didn't need any guidance from him. You know, she was good on her end. She just didn't, all she needed from him was to not make her feel like, that sets the tone for what you can expect. What do you mean you don't need guidance from me? I am your director. I am here to guide you. And how are you going to bring about my vision if I'm not guiding you, if I'm not telling you where you're going off the mark and where you are on the mark? Like, that is, she set the tone there. And I think a mistake that Justin made, I don't know, obviously, if how it was addressed, but you have to nip these things in the bud, like, right away. On my set, when I had people speaking out of turn and trying to direct actors, it made for a very uncomfortable situation. But like, you have to know how to deal with discomfort and you have to address it. And so right away, before the next day that we filmed, I addressed it with the people. And some people took it well and was like, so sorry, like, didn't mean to overstep and blah, 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 blah. And it was all good. And then other people didn't, you know, like, you could see the change in their behavior moving forward. And like, it sucks when that happens because you're like, there's some people who just take things way too personally. Like, and this is a part of being a professional. Like, you can't take things, how do you, an actor or a crew member, how are you in this industry and with thin skin? Like, you have to have thick skin to be in this industry. So yes, he should have nipped it in the bud either by sending an email or having a producer sending an email to everyone, or him saying, like, taking the person aside, or taking Blake aside and saying, like, I don't understand. Like, I am here to direct you, but this is the problem when you have such a big ego, right? Like Blake, right? I don't know how she would have even taken that if he were to take her to one side and be like, maybe this was a conversation that they were having where he was airing his grievances about how she was behaving. And I gotta say, at that point, maybe he should have packed it up. Like, that's a bad sign. And maybe at that point, he should have just been like, well, this is the first day, and maybe we should recast, right? Because it doesn't get better from there. It's not going to get better from there. And this is another thing. There were contract issues. Apparently, Blake didn't sign her contract. And I have had contract issues. My first film, I didn't have any contracts, and it was grand. Everyone was great. Like, I had people sign, like, release forms and everything, like, nothing that was different from a contract, right? Spelling out, like, all these different terms and things. And on this most recent one, as I said, every film, you want to become more professional. I want to do it the right way. So everyone was given a contract, and I was given pushback on a contract. And I should have thought right away the first time there was pushback on the contract, which spells out everything that was verbally agreed upon, that this person is making a power play and they are being difficult. And I am all for people advocating for themselves. It's not that, like, you look at the contract and you're like, well, I want this, that, the other. But maybe they're demanding things that you can't offer. And when they have to compromise or they don't get their way, like, more than likely, they're going to bring that resentment into the production. And when you're on a production that is so stressful, like, there's things, they're not going to feel gracious. They're not going to be giving you, like, the benefit of the doubt. They're not going to, that's how people are. Most people are. If they don't get their way, they kind of carry that with them. And I don't think she ever signed a contract, right? Like, so they were operating without a contract. Justin should have realized when there was murmuring on set. Not just with Blake, because I'm sure, like, she was spreading it. We know she was spreading it amongst the cast. And I'm sure he could feel a shift. You can tell when people are disgruntled. You enter the room and everything, like, quiets down. You try to make a joke, no one laughs, people are avoiding eye contact, there's tension in the air. You can feel it. And it's, like, unavoidable. And so he should have addressed the murmuring on set by, like I said, making this blanket statement up front and just addressing it head on. You can't ignore it. You cannot ignore it. You have to do something about it because it only gets worse. And there's also a text that I saw that Blake sent about, I think this one was to Ben Affleck. It was an email, and she was saying that the DP was coming to her when he or she couldn't get anything from Justin, which was so way too often or something like that. Or, like, she was alluding to the DP coming to her a lot because she couldn't get he or she. I'm gonna, like, keep this. There's so few female women DPs, but he or she, they couldn't get anything from Justin, so they were coming to Blake, and you have to stop that. This actually, like, happened to me on set where I was addressing an elephant in the room, like, and the person was saying, like, oh, well, people are coming to me and asking me for things today because you're not, like, being clear and whatever. And I was like, thank you for telling me that. Lesson learned. Next day, hey everyone, if you have a question, come to me. It's on the call sheet, right? So, like, you should have questions about the schedule and stuff. But, like, if you have a question about creative aspect, you need to come to me. I make it clear. But sometimes you can make it clear and people will still just go to the person they're closest to on the set. Like, what's happening next? Like, you know what's happening next? And you can avoid that. And maybe this is something that Justin could have done differently by communicating or having, this is usually what your AD is for though, right? But like, if you want to just communicate with everyone and make sure everyone is on the same page, and you want to be proactive about it so that no one can be like, oh, I'm in the dark and no one told me what's going on. And like, it's just, again, people give no grace. It's mind-boggling to me how you put out a call for cast and crew and people are so gung-ho to be a part of your production, and then when they get hired, they just murmur and complain about like every little thing. Like, are you excited? You said you want to be in this industry. You know what is involved, the long hours, retake after retake. Like, this is what it is. And then you're gonna finally get hired. You know how many people want this job that you have? And then you're gonna just complain and murmur about every little thing. And don't give any grace. Don't extend any grace. And again, like I said, I can relate to Justin as a person that's wearing so many hats: writing, producing, directing, acting. I'm doing all those things too. And decision fatigue is real. You are, first of all, very, very busy because you're juggling a lot of different things. And sometimes people don't want to bother you because they can tell like you're busy, but you just make it clear. You just make it, you don't penalize when people come up to you with a question, right? You make it clear up front. You are welcome to come and ask me any questions at any time. And like, you just have to tell people that. And then, but sometimes you will have decision fatigue, and this is to another point, when Blake was like, he's indecisive or whatever. And someone in the comments mentioned that he had been working on this project for so many years, like 5 years, I believe, and that he knew what he wanted, and that very well could be the case. There are scenarios where you have a very clear vision of what you want for certain scenes, and then other scenes you might be a little like, you can't decide. Like, maybe this happened to me, even though I've done shot lists and I know, like, I wrote the script, I know what I had in mind, but then you're confronted with, oh, well, we could do that or we could do that. And then you're just like, you want input from the other people around you to just help you kind of choose, because you are making millions of decisions. It feels like, maybe not millions, probably millions over the course of a film set, especially if you're doing a shoot for months. But it's a lot for one person to bear, and you have a team, right? Like, this time around, I had a bigger team, and Justin certainly had a huge team around him to help with that. So that should have mitigated some of the issues, and you can't really blame Justin for the DP going to Blake when that's like, he is being unprofessional. He should have been seeking the answers from Justin and not going over to Blake. And if he was emboldened to do that, it's because Justin let the set like carry on long enough where Blake was kind of seen as the co-director or something, and he didn't nip it in the bud. You have to. And then how they respond to it is kind of how they respond to it. If they respond to it poorly, then like, there's another conversation yet again that you need to have with them about this thing attitude. Anyways, so I think ideally the person, you would see it and then you could nip it in the bud, or the person like Blake would have mentioned that to Justin, like, this is why I'm being asked about this. But it seems like she kind of wanted to hold the reins, right, and have the power. So like, she would welcome probably the DP asking her, right? So she wouldn't complain to Justin so that he could correct it, maybe, because again, we all know like that she felt like he wasn't well equipped, and shouldn't have been directing this movie. She should have been directing it in her mind. So she probably welcomed that response from the DP, even though she was complaining about it to Ben Affleck. Like, which one is it? Do you or do you not want to be in charge? But yeah, you have to really pay attention to the set. Have someone who can kind of tell you if you're not able to, because you're doing so many other things, tell you what the temperature is on set, like what the feeling is on set. But I cannot imagine a world in which he didn't feel the tension. You can feel it. Like, people can't hide it very well. And once you spot it, like, then you have to just address it somehow. I also saw where Blake sent a text message, I believe, to Jenny Slate, where she was saying that she felt bad vibes about Justin, and she pushed forward anyway, and like she would never ever do that again. And like, I could have written that text. We all could have written that text, right? Where like, and hindsight, it's 2020, you know. Obviously, after the fact, you're like, oh yeah, I knew there was something off about that person, and like, but she should have. That's what she should have done differently. She should have listened to her gut that told her that she wasn't going to vibe well with him, that he wasn't her. Look, we all mesh well with different people. We don't mesh with everyone. So she should have listened to her intuition that was telling her that she wasn't going to mesh well or work well with Justin the way he likes to work, which is to be like really, really positive and woo-woo frou-frou and huggy and go out and talk to the fans. And not that this was her complaint, that was Jenny's complaint. And she should have listened to that and not worked with him. And she wouldn't have gotten herself in this big old mess that she's in today. I got to say, you think, oh, I don't really like this boss. This boss is a little giving me weird vibes, but I do need to feed my family this month. So, and the foreseeable future, and like getting a job in this economy. I don't know if I should be turning down any jobs. So you take the job and you're like, you try to make it work, right? Like so I don't know. I don't think Blake was in that position. I don't think that she had to take this project. We don't know. We don't know these people's financial situations. You know, she has a lot of business ventures that I'm sure she has to pay a lot of people. And like, you know, she's like, can I really afford to turn down this like $1 million check just because I get a off vibe about this? Like, I think it's in a cult, but you know, the like joking and being very informal and loose with your language. I think Justin could have improved in this particular area, right? Like, because one of the things when you think that you're friends with people, you become casual, right? And you're not thinking, oh, I need to choose my words carefully. We don't police ourselves like that when we're talking to our friends. You know, you're just like, you can be yourself, and you don't have to worry about like being professional and using the right language to make sure no one gets offended and da-da-da-da-da, right? So Justin, apparently a number of times, he was calling people sexy or saying that the scene was hot, particularly the one with Isabella Ferreira losing her virginity. And I do think Justin could have chosen his words better, right? There's a way to express that you are happy with a sex scene without saying something that can then be twisted, like even if you don't intend that for it to be this way, but it could be twisted as you getting turned on by the actors, right? So with the Isabella Ferreira scene, instead of saying that's hot, he could have said, great job. You did exactly what I envisioned. That's exactly what I was going for. You nailed it. Instead of saying that's hot, right? Like, or like I could feel the vulnerability and like the sexual tension and like that you guys brought to it. It was just really believable, you know, something like that even. Or instead of calling her sexy, like you really shouldn't be commenting on bodies, and you just got to be more careful, especially when you're talking about intimate scenes. You have to be. And as someone who makes romantic comedies where people are falling in love, right? Like I want it to be convincing, and I want you to feel like the chemistry there. But I wouldn't say, and I guess it's a little different. Not different, but I feel like having male co-stars And I've always, so let me finish my thought. I feel like having male co-stars, they are not as like, I don't know, sensitive, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to take advantage and be like, yeah, you were hot in that scene. But I have said, like, I need you to really like be smoldering and sexy in the scene. I need you to be like really charming and give off like cute vibes. Like as a director, like you should be able to say what you are going for, but it's kind of sad that you do have to choose your words so wisely, because things that you say when everyone likes each other, like everything is all cool, it can all of a sudden those same words are twisted, and when people feel slighted or they no longer like you for whatever reason. And it seems like Blake really took offense to Justin mentioning that he talks to her father often, and she's like, oh, my father died 3 years ago. And I really want to know the context around this. I don't really get that, but it seems like this is one of the big sticking points for her, where she decided, I do not like this man. Okay. And after that switch occurs, it's very hard to go back to liking someone after you have decided, I don't like them. Right? Everything that you said beforehand, it like gets filtered through a new lens. And then it's like this thing that they said before, which is fine. Now that I think about it, yeah, he said this and that. Ugh, that he shouldn't have said that. You know, that's inappropriate. Like, that's what happens. The same words. So I think Justin should have been just very, very mindful. And one of the things is not thinking that these people are your friends. He had to be very mindful with the words that he was using, and should have steered away from commenting like about like bodies and even though he is the director and looks and things like that. It's just safer, protect yourself and don't take it there. That's what Justin really someone should have told him, advised him on that. I'm sure moving forward, he's learned his lesson. It's a very, very expensive lesson to learn. Like the $350 million that this movie made, like they all made money, as I said, and I can't imagine like the amount of lawyers that both sides have. This is an expensive dispute. You have to pay all these people, like just eating away into his generational wealth there, and hers too. But someone just made a comment that Blake was chastising Justin for wearing so many hats, for having so many different roles, playing so many different roles in the project. But then was turning around and then trying to claim that she played all these different roles, and like it was angling, right? Because she sees herself as a director, and like she's like she's the wardrobe person. She sees herself as like the designer and the producer, and you know, she's everything. She wants to be everything that Justin was, but then she makes fun of him for having the audacity to call himself all these things. Like this one is a bit of a personal. I really relate to this part so much, because I am someone who I never put myself in a box. And I have so many different interests. It's like, yeah, I want to write and I want to direct. I've tried my hand at directing. I like directing. And I used to act in high school, and like, I like acting and this is fun. Like, I want to do that too. And I'm going to produce my project, because if I don't produce it, I'm just kind of leaving my fate in someone else's hands. So like, yeah, I'm going to finance it, and I'm going to find the money, or I'm going to take my own money and invest in it in myself. And then some people are of the opinion that like, if you don't have all these different people, you know, in place, like you're a joke because you're doing all these things. And the proper way to do it, the professional way to do it, is to have like this big team. Like, what if you can't afford, obviously this doesn't apply to them. What if you can't afford a big team where person doing this and that, you haven't found those people yet. Everyone has to start from somewhere. And she seemed to begrudge him doing all those things. Some people think that you shouldn't be making a movie unless you can pay everyone like $500 a day. So, and by that logic, like some of the big directors that we know today, right? Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, like they shouldn't exist because Kevin James, that guy, like they all started by just making things and started small. And I'm sure I couldn't afford to pay everyone like gobs of money. And it's just jealousy. It's like people who like they haven't created anything and they wouldn't take a risk they wouldn't go out on a limb. They don't understand anyone else wanting to sacrifice a pay cut because they believe in a project and they want to push it forward and be a part of it. Like they are not really passionate about the industry or the art or the project. They just are in it for the money, right? Look, I get it. Like not everyone's passionate about what they do. As a creative who fully believes in investing in yourself, like, and not begging for permission from the people the gatekeepers, right? Not necessarily going the traditional route and just doing it. Like I've always been a fan of the just do it slogan. I'm like, why not? Why not me? Why not do it? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. And if I can't find someone, because I'm new at this, if I can't find someone to come alongside me and do it with me, then I will learn. I'll learn how to do that and that and that until I can pay people to do that and that and that. Like that's just my approach to things. And there are people who think you're too uppity or something that you dare to step out of the box. I don't really know what they think. I don't get it. I don't get why people begrudge people who are striving to accomplish something and will do it at any cost, right? Like we'll just find a way to get it done. And like that should be inspirational to you versus you making fun of someone that's able to do that, that's able to wear all these different hats. Because let me tell you, putting a film together is not easy. It isn't easy, especially when you don't have a huge support system. So I think it should be commended. You should be commended for being able to kind of switch gears and take on a lot. And it's a big load. And like I said, people are just not, they don't give you, a lot of people don't give you any grace. You know, they're like, why isn't it more organized? That's true. Like, why, we know what's happening every second, or like, why is this changing at the last minute? Because they've never put a film together and they don't understand that changes occur and the script might need to change here. And like, it's just, people are just can be very ungracious. And this world would be a better place where people were like, I think, Justin, who seems to be a very gracious person. And I think that's something that Justin could have, what was I even going with this? I forget. What did Justin could have done differently in this case? Nothing. Nothing could have been done. I think Blake should have been the one to commend him instead of, well, she should have given him some grace. She could have done that differently. And if it were the case that because she felt like because he was playing all these roles, she couldn't go to anyone with a grievance or something, like maybe this is one area that he could have put some systems in place where like these are the people that you go to if you have an issue, and it can't be him. So I doubt that this was the case, but maybe if it was the case, if that were the case, then he should have done that differently, because someone has to be able to air their grievances. Otherwise, like, you'll just have the murmuring and it'll just basically spread throughout the set and it'll be a nightmare experience for everyone involved. But if they can express themselves and then whatever they express, it gets addressed, I think then you can move on. And maybe you're not friends, but like you can move on because you feel like you were hurt. So he should have, although he's playing like all those different roles, he should have had someone be clearly appointed where people could go and say like what they were having problems with. And sometimes you do have that stuff in place and then people just are not comfortable. There are some people who cannot deal with conflict. They cannot deal with discomfort very well. And I found that to be the case too. Like, it was one of the reasons I had to cut ties with people. I think that you have to be able to have uncomfortable conversations. That's like a life skill, right? Like, if you feel uncomfortable and then you're just like, well, I'm just going to ignore this. I'm just going to like ghost the person. Like, then that's not really a professional way to deal with things. And if you have anything that crops up on set where there's discomfort and it needs to be addressed and like nobody's willing to talk about the elephant in the room or like to bring it to you, then it just, it could be avoided, you know? But anyway, someone did mention on my last video, and thank you all again so much for all of the great comments on that video. Someone mentioned that I should read you the entire quote. The moral of the story: research the conflicts and drama of the actor before you hire them. I tried my hand in movies and absolutely couldn't handle how fake everyone was. I was constantly suspicious of everyone. That made me laugh really like hard, you know, because like people, like, as we know, like, people are duplicitous. A lot of people are, and they'll smile in your face all the while trying to take your place. Those backstabbers, or they seem like they act like everything is okay, and then, you know, they're retroactively using words that you said to them when you guys were all good as like evidence against you for something. So yeah, I thought that was a really funny comment. But to that person's point about finding out the drama that the actor has been involved in, I do think Justin could have done a little bit more research on Blake. Her reputation precedes her. There have been articles about it. She has had interviews, public interviews, where she's not being very nice. You know, she's being kind of passive aggressive and being like having a lot of attitude towards journalists, towards cast members. You know, she doesn't seem that easy to work with. In a lot of her past interviews, so he could have done his due diligence there. And as it relates to us independent filmmakers, obviously, if you're not working with a big star who has a lot of credits to their name, then like, you can't really just be like, oh, let me go see what was written up about this actor, right? But you can ask them how they deal with discomfort. Like, has there been any situation on set where you felt uncomfortable? It's been hard for you, like, you know, frame it that way instead of, so what drama? Tell me the tea about your last set. They're not like asking that. But there has to have been some situation where you felt it was hard or uncomfortable. And how did you deal with that discomfort? This is what you want to get to the heart of, and then gauge from their response if you think that this is the person you want on your set. Because like they're going to probably, and everyone, you know, when they're trying to get a job, they just like, not everyone lies, but everyone tries to paint themselves as the angel. They did nothing wrong, you know. And people who don't take any accountability, though, you know, that's a red flag. If they can't think of one single instance where they didn't agree with the way something was handled or where they had an uncomfortable situation, that's also probably a red flag. They're probably not being truthful, you know. So there is that. But there are so many people who are hard to work with who then they are big actors and like they still get work because they have fans and they have this public persona that's different from their private persona that, you know, and the fans support them, so they still get work. So it's not like black and white. But I think it's just important to at least try. Like I said before, there were signs that Blake wasn't going to be easy to work with when she wasn't signing that contract, when she was saying up front that she didn't need to be guided by him, when she was trying to rewrite scenes, maybe, you know, when, and you could, like, I was looking at some behind the scenes footage of the It Ends With Us, and she felt like her energy is so pushy. And I get, like, there are people who have like big personalities and they are very loud. They're very loud, and I'm not like a loud person. Maybe it doesn't seem that way, but and Blake feels like that. When I see her on set, I can hear her say, "We got that." I can in one of the sets, or "That was great," or the director needs to be saying that stuff, and she should be a professional, so she should know, like, take your cue from him. And like I said before, I've dealt with that. Like, and it's just you're making a list constantly, like who you would want to work with in the future. And there have been people from, not to kind of go back on what I was talking about before in my last video, but that I make note of. Like I had an actor and he was so amazing. And I was like, I have to have him like on every project that I can get him on. I want him on because he's just so easy to work with. And also I liked him, but like he's just a likable guy. But to go back to Blake and Justin, you have to be able to suss them out. Like they'll put up a good act, but like if they're a good actor, which not everyone agrees Blake is. And I don't think she was trying to act meek or anything like that. Like you can tell her personality. And maybe if you know like the type of personalities that you don't work well with, then I will be doing that moving forward. I'm like, I've noticed, you notice patterns. And you're like, there are certain personalities that are more prone to doing this. And for me, I know that I won't be hiring people with that personality moving forward. Cocky, not that I don't want anyone to dim anyone's light or anything, but it's just, I think to save me the headache, I know I already have enough on my plate. Like, I just don't want to have to like finesse people. It's hard to work with. Like, it's hard. And so I know like I'm going to stay clear. And maybe if I had a different personality, I wouldn't find it difficult to work with a certain person like that also had like a really, really big personality. It's not even big, it's just like overbearing or something, like, what's the word I'm looking for? You guys in the chat will tell me. I'm sure somebody has had experience with this. Our personalities it's on display. It shines through. And sure, you have like a different personality with different people, like with your friends, you might be a little bit different than you are with your coworkers. But I think you can kind of tell, like, people can't really hide their true selves. Definitely not for very, very long, right? That's why sometimes they have these interview processes that goes on forever and ever. And it's really important. Like with this last one, I had obviously the auditions via self-tape because like that's just the world we're living in now. But also when I was narrowing it down, then I was like, I want to meet these people in person. And I like sat with different prospects and we like would read through a few scenes and I would always do that again because when I thought I had a cast member and then we did this, I put them through this process and the person kind of gave out on me. They were like, I was asking them to do something different, right? They were giving me one thing. I was like, can you try a different way, this way? And the person was like, I don't think I can do this. I feel like I'm not experienced enough. I feel like I'm not prepared. I feel like I'm going to disappoint you, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? In the moment, it was like it was disappointing that the person wasn't like fighting because at first I'm telling you, they all come out saying like, I really want the role. I'm perfect for the role. Da 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 da. And then like when you get on set, it's like sometimes a different person. So, and then sometimes not all the time, but I felt like it was a little bit of a blow in the moment because I was like, I thought I had this character basically cast. I was trying, give me any reason to cast you, just like affirm. And this is kind of just a formality, right? And I was disappointed, and then along I was like, actually, no, this is good because I'd rather it happen before we start filming than we start filming. And then I discover this, and you discover this about yourself, that you're not confident in your ability to perform and to deliver. And then I found another person to replace that person, and it worked out for the better. So I think it's super important to look to a part of the vetting process to be like the different rounds of you just talking to the person and feeling them out and trying to get to their real personality, because it comes through, like eventually. They can't hide it for too long. I was looking at the behind the scenes of them in the bar, and like when they cut, like he didn't look happy. I cut his face. You can be in sets where you feel so it's so fun. Like it is just really fun, and you're laughing a lot. Yes, we're all doing a lot of hard work, but you feel good, like when you cut in between, you're smiling and you're kind of, talking to the people around you. But I was looking at this scene, and when they cut, it didn't. And maybe again, it's because I know, like in hindsight, what was happening, but there was just no joy in his face. I don't think, like, if I think about my scenes on my films, was I looking joyful after every take? Maybe not, because I'm just thinking about like what I have to do next, or like what I didn't like about that take, what I need to change, or what notes I need to give. Like there are a lot of things that are running through your head, especially if you're the director and if you're the actor and you're like having to direct yourself, and then you're also having to direct other people. And there's a lot involved. So maybe I'm like just misreading it and misconstruing it, and that he was fine. Maybe like, maybe he was having a grand time at the end of the day. I mean, I do think that Justin will come out the other side of this okay. And he seems really like a decent guy. So I do appreciate that you appreciate my insights stemming from my experience on sets and making movies and playing a very similar role to Justin, albeit on a smaller scale for the time being. But if you do want to see my movies, if you are a rom-com girly or guy, what's the word? Is there a guy? If you love rom-coms and you want to kick your feet and you want to see the characters falling in love and you want to fall in love alongside them, those are the types of movies that I make. So you can go and sign up to be notified when my movies are available to be screened or to be watched at simprety.com/screenings. And of course, I appreciate your likes, your subscribes, and your comments. The comment section is always like the most fun part of making videos. I love to hear other people's take, and like you guys come with these amazing points and you add to the conversation and just makes it much more like richer, this entire thing. I feel like you're my internet besties, like not really therapy, but kind of like therapy, but also like just friends. I am blurring the line here. We are friends here. So like the video, subscribe, and go sign up to be notified about the screenings. And until the next one, bye.